right, guys, welcome to the next video. In this video, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be going in. We've had the opportunity to put a line of code in. This video, we're going to be playing with that line of code and figuring out all kinds of different things that it does and what the program itself is currently doing. All right, so guys, here we are back in Microsoft Visual Studios. And in our last video, what we did is we went in and we created this little DeBug.log line of hello world. And what we did was we then saved it and we brought it over to Unity. And in Unity, when we ran our game, you'll notice what happens is right here in the console, it puts this message out to the screen. Okay, pretty cool. Let's go back into Microsoft Visual Studios, and I'm going to change this message because as the DeBug.log, it should tell us a piece of information. I'm going to say, this is what happens in the start function. Make sure I spelled all that correctly. I'm going to take the space out. So this is what happens in the start function. And I'm going to go ahead and let's just do another one of these. So DUB, I'm going to hit tab, dot, and then from there, I'm going to go ahead and pick the top one, hit tab. We'll put the parentheses at the end of it. And I'm going to go ahead and put in my semicolon because I know it belongs there. And the reason why it's giving me an error message on log right now is because it's asking for information to put out to the screen. All right, so this is what happens in the start function. It only prints a message out once. All right, so this is what happens in the start function. It only prints the message out once. Let me go ahead and save that. I'm going to hit Control S. That will then allow us to head back into Unity. And as we're back in Unity now, you'll see that everything is kind of cleared up. Right here, we have two DeBug.logs because we still have our script that has been selected. And so it's displaying what is in the script in our inspector window. And so it says, this is what happens in the start function. It only prints a message out once. So let's go ahead and run the program. I'm going to go to console first. We'll run our video game. We'll play it. And you'll see right here, this is what happens in the start function. It only prints this message out once. All right, cool. So now let's go back into Microsoft Visual Studios, and in the update function, let's do a debug.log. So I'm going to do debug dot, let's tab down to, I just use my arrow key to go down until I had log selected. I'm going to hit tab again. Then we're going to put in the parentheses and we're going to put in our semicolon at the end. You'll see once again now that it's saying, I've got a message here that's saying, what's going on? There's a problem. So I'm going to put in my open quotation marks, and it automatically puts in my end quotation marks. And then I'm going to say, as opposed to this. All right, so now we have two debug.logs in the start function. That happens at the very start of when we play our game. Then from there, I have a debug.log that is in my update function. Now, should everything run correctly, like I expect it to, what will happen is something interesting. Let's go ahead and save this. I'm going to do a Control S. Head back into Unity. There we go. You'll see that everything has been cleaned up. If I come over here and I still have the hello world selected, if I deselect it and then reselect it, you'll see exactly what's going on. So I've got two debug.logs. I've got this one. This is what happens in the start function. It only prints this message out once. And in our update function, it says as opposed to this. So let's go to the console window and I'm going to hit play. And you'll notice what's happening is now that the game is physically playing, we got our initial two debug.logs on the opening. It said, this is what happens in the start function. It prints this message out once. Now, if you'll notice, it is continuously printing out this message. Why is it continuously printing out this message? Because every single frame of the game updates, and as it updates, it's spitting this newer message out that says, as opposed to this. Well, as opposed to this, what happens? It just keeps printing out like boom, 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 boom. And it will continue to do this into infinity until I stop the game. And if you go through and scroll through the list here, and I happen to have one of those mice that does not have a limiter on the scroll button, so you can see what's going on right over here. Let me go ahead and scroll up. So these are the amount of times that little message printed out to our screen. So, and I could keep on going. we're not even 1/10 of the way up yet. And I'm still just letting it scroll. Okay. So what happens is this: our start function prints a message out to the screen once. It's the very start. And then from there, it goes to the update function. And every time, every single frame of the game, it reruns that update function. And so every single time it prints that DeBug.log list, prints that debug as opposed to this out to the screen again and again and again. Now let me show you a little bit of functionality with the console window. I can clear this, and so all of my messages have gone away. That is super important because let's say, for example, I come back in and I update my script, and then I want to make sure that I'm not carrying over any messages from the previous time I played the game. Let me go ahead and play it one more time. Okay, there's my beginning messages, and now it's funneling through all of my updates. Let me go ahead and hit stop so I don't have an absolute ton of them. And yet look how many of them that I have in just like a second or two. I have an absolute mountain load of those update functions. So we cleared them. I can also go in and I can collapse them. And so what a collapse does is the collapse takes all of our duplicate messages and it just goes, hey, all these are exactly the same. Let's go ahead and shrink those down to 1. And so now you can see this is what happens to the start function. It prints this message out only once, and as opposed to this. And then we have a list of the amount of times that this message was put out to the screen. And our current total in like 1 or 2 seconds, 6,103 times it printed that message out. Goodness, can you imagine the amount of times that it printed it out? The first time we ran this game, and then I just talked for a little while, right? I mean, I only let it run for a second or two. That is how many times that this message here got printed out to the screen. A whole bunch, absolutely a whole bunch. So hopefully with that, you can kind of get the idea of exactly the functionality between the start function and the update function. The update function literally happens once every frame. And so it is important to not only make sure that whatever information goes in your start function, you realize it's only going to happen once. And then inside my update function, this is super important to keep track of as well, because the update function is legitimately what lags your game. If I have too many things running in that update function, too many things for it to think about, your computer begins to get bogged down. And as it begins to get bogged down, it runs less and less frames. Because if I have 10 steps that it's doing in the update function, not bad. I can churn through those really quick. But if I have millions of functions, things that need to be done in that update function, it has to go through a million things before it's allowed to update again. And then a million things, and then it updates again. And that's where we get lag in your video game. All right. So super important information right there that we did with our DeBug.log. By the way, since you've made it this far in this video, I want you to type in something like this on your screen. It doesn't matter exactly what you have it say, but I want you to differentiate between the start function and the update function. And I want you to turn a screenshot of that. Once you've played it, you stopped it, and you collapsed the console window, I want you to turn that in as an assignment to me to show me that you understand the difference between the start function and the update function. All right, we will see you in the next video when we start creating some variables and we start getting a little bit more interaction between Microsoft Visual Studios and Unity, the video game engine. And on that note, we will see you in the next video.